They grabbed her hair bun like it was a rope, like she was livestock to be dragged. But Harper Fitzgerald had been wrestling 200-pound hogs since she was 8 years old. And when Grayson Whitmore yanked her head back in that empty gym, something primal awakened. Something that had been sleeping since she left the farm. The sound his body made when it hit the floor. I'll never forget it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how a farm girl from Iowa ended up throwing the most powerful boy at Crestmont Prep across a gymnasium floor. Let me tell you about the night that changed everything. It was February 2024, and the White Mountains of New Hampshire were buried under 3 feet of snow. Harper May Fitzgerald was 17 years old, 5'4", and invisible by design. She wore her brown hair in the same tight bun every day, same faded work boots, same second-hand uniform that never quite fit right. At Crestmont Preparatory Academy, where tuition cost $68,000 a year, Harper was the janitor. Well, student/janitor. The scholarship they gave her for being a promising rural student covered classes, but not living. So every night from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., she pushed a mop bucket through marble hallways where her classmates' parents had their names engraved on gold plaques. "You know your place," her supervisor, Mr. Jennings, always said. "Keep your head down, do your work, graduate. That's your ticket out." Harper knew about keeping her head down. She'd been doing it since the bank took their 200-year-old family farm back in Iowa. Since her daddy put a shotgun in his mouth rather than face another foreclosure notice. Since her mama started working 3 jobs to keep food on the table for Harper and her 10-year-old brother, who couldn't speak but understood everything. At Crestmont, she was a ghost. The other students looked through her like she was part of the furniture, which suited her fine. She wasn't there to make friends. She was there to survive. Until the night she found Cooper Chen dying on the library floor. It was Thursday, February 8th, 2:13 a.m. Harper was emptying trash cans in the Henderson Memorial Library when she heard it. A wet, choking sound, like someone gargling water. She found him between the stacks, body rigid, foam at his mouth, eyes rolled back. Cooper Chen, freshman, 15 years old, known for his perfect grades and crippling anxiety about maintaining them. Harper dropped to her knees. 10 years of farm life had taught her about death, about the precious seconds between here and gone. She tilted his head, cleared his airway, started compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4. "Come on," she whispered. "Come on, kid." His body convulsed. For a moment, his eyes focused on her face. His lips moved. "Blue, pills." The words were barely air. "Gray, sun," then nothing. No pulse, no breath. Cooper Chen was dead. A small plastic baggie had fallen from his pocket. 3 blue pills inside, stamped with a lightning bolt. Harper had seen kids dry swallow these in hallways, thinking they were Adderall, thinking they were just study aids to survive Crestmont's brutal academic pressure. She should have left it for security to find, should have called for help and walked away. But something made her pocket that baggie. Maybe it was the way Cooper had looked at her in those final seconds, like he was trying to tell her something important. The official story came out the next morning. Cooper Chen, overwhelmed by academic pressure, had taken his own life. Another tragic statistic at a school that already led the nation in student suicides. There would be grief counselors, a memorial service. Then everyone would move on. But Harper couldn't move on, because she'd held Cooper Chen as he died, and she knew the truth. This wasn't suicide. This was murder. Have you ever known something that could destroy your whole life if you spoke it out loud? That's where Harper stood. A farm girl janitor holding evidence that could bring down the most powerful family at Crestmont. The Whitmores owned Whitmore Pharmaceuticals, a company worth $12 billion. Their son Grayson was everything Harper wasn't 6'2". Captain of the water polo team. Headed to Yale. Perfect smile that had never known a hungry night. He ruled Crestmont through something called the Ascent Club, a secret society of the ultra-wealthy kids whose parents donated millions to keep the school running. And according to Cooper's dying words, Grayson was selling fake Adderall that was killing students. Harper should have gone to the police right away. But you have to understand something about places like Crestmont. When your mama cleans houses for a living and theirs run pharmaceutical empires, nobody believes your word over theirs. The system wasn't built for farm girls to bring down princes. So she kept quiet, kept mopping floors, kept her head down, until 3 nights later, when they locked her in the kitchen freezer. It happened during her regular shift. Harper was cleaning the industrial kitchen when she heard the heavy door slam. The lock click. The temperature was -10 degrees Fahrenheit, designed to flash freeze meat. For 4 hours. She fought to stay alive, jumped in place, did push-ups, wrapped herself in plastic sheeting. Every breath was ice in her lungs. Every minute was a choice to keep going or give up. You know what saved her 10 years of Iowa winters? Of doing morning chores when it was 20 below. Of breaking ice off water troughs with bare hands because the work didn't stop for weather. Her body knew cold, had been trained by it. When morning staff found her, she was hypothermic but alive. They called it an accident. Faulty lock. Could happen to anyone. But Harper saw the message clear as day. We know, you know. Stop. Or next time, you won't walk out. She might have stopped, might have kept her head down like Mr. Jennings said. But that night, an email appeared on the Crestmont Confessions page. A video. Harper's face photoshopped onto pornographic images. The caption, "Farm trash trying to milk her way to the top." By morning, everyone had seen it. They whispered when she walked by, laughed behind hands. Some were cruel enough to moo, but worse was what happened to her family. Her mother got a call at her housekeeping job. Anonymous tip about drug use. Fired on the spot. Her little brother Marcus, who attended special education at the local public school, suddenly had kids cornering him at recess, calling his sister names he didn't understand, but knew were meant to hurt. That's when Harper understood. This wasn't just about keeping her quiet. This was about destroying her completely. The rage that built in her chest was familiar. She'd felt it watching the auctioneers sell off their farm equipment piece by piece. Felt it lowering her daddy into the ground while bankers counted their profits. But she'd always swallowed it down. Good girls didn't get angry. Poor girls couldn't afford to. But Harper was tired of being good. She started paying attention, really watching. In the hallways between classes, she saw the exchanges, quick handshakes where money and blue pills changed hands, always the same kids, always leading back to Grayson's crew. She mapped their network in her head while she mopped, noted which teachers looked the other way, which security guards took long breaks during certain transactions. The system wasn't just broken, it was designed this way. Then Mrs. Chen contacted her. It was a Tuesday night. Bitter cold. Harper was salting the walkways when a woman approached. Asian, mid-40s, expensive coat but tired eyes. "You're the one who was with my son," she said. Not a question. Harper's throat tightened. "Mrs. Chen, they told me he killed himself. The woman's voice was steady, but her hands shook. "But I know my son. He was scared of something. Someone." They sat in Mrs. Chen's BMW, heat blasting, while Harper told her everything: the blue pills, Grayson's name, the freezer, the threats. Mrs. Chen listened without interrupting. Then she pulled out a folder. "I hired a private investigator, had those pills tested at an independent lab." She handed Harper the report. "Methamphetamine mixed with fentanyl, designed to feel like Adderall at first, then create dependency, then kill." Harper stared at the paper. 3 other student deaths in the past year, all ruled suicides. All had those blue pills in their systems. "Why hasn't anyone done anything?" Mrs. Chen's laugh was bitter. 40% of Crestmont's budget comes from Whitmore Pharmaceuticals. The board, the administration, even some local police, they all benefit from keeping things quiet. "So what do we do?" For the first time, Mrs. Chen smiled. "We burn it all down." They started building a case. Mrs. Chen used her resources to trace the supply chain. Harper used her invisible status to observe and document. She learned that Grayson's operation was massive. $2 million in sales. Connections to his father's pharmaceutical plants, where quality control failures produced the deadly pills. Her roommate, Dakota, finally broke down and confessed what she knew. Half the water polo team was involved. They called themselves the Providers, saw themselves as performing a service. After all, everyone needed an edge to survive Crestmont's pressure. They were just meeting market demand. "I wanted to say something," Dakota sobbed, "but my dad's military pension isn't enough. I need this scholarship. I need—" Harper held her roommate while she cried. She understood need, understood the terrible math of survival, but understanding didn't make it right. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source: Ezra Thompson, senior, valedictorian candidate, and Adderall addict. He'd been buying from Grayson for 2 years. But when Cooper died, something shifted. Cooper was a good kid. Ezra told Harper during a secret meeting in the chapel. He just wanted to keep his grades up, make his parents proud. He pulled out a wire. "I've been working with the DEA for 6 months. Every conversation recorded. I just needed someone brave enough to help me finish this." Brave. Harper almost laughed. She wasn't brave. She was just too tired to be scared anymore. They planned carefully, gathered evidence, built an airtight case. But Grayson must have sensed the walls closing in. Because, on February 27th, he decided to handle Harper himself. It was 11 p.m. Harper was alone in the gymnasium, mopping the basketball court. The building was supposed to be locked, but locks meant nothing to kids whose parents donated wings. She heard them before she saw them. 5 sets of footsteps. The squeak of sneakers on fresh-cleaned floor. "Working late. Farm girl," Grayson's voice echoed in the empty space. He stood at center court with 4 other water polo players. Big kids, athletes, the kind who'd never known hunger or hard work. Harper kept mopping. "Just doing my job." "Your job." Grayson stepped closer. "See? That's the problem. You forgot what your job is. Your job is to clean up messes, not create them." The other boys spread out, forming a loose circle. Harper's hand tightened on the mop handle. 5 against 1 in an empty building. No cameras in the old gym. "Cooper Chen was 15 years old," she said quietly. Cooper Chen was weak. Grayson's perfect face twisted. "He couldn't handle the pressure. That's not my fault. You sold him poison." "I sold him what he wanted. What they all want. A way to be perfect. He gestured around the gym. You think any of us want to be here? You think we chose this pressure? Our parents expect excellence, demand it. I just help provide it. He moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Expensive. The kind her daddy could never afford. But you wouldn't understand that. Would you, farm trash? Probably never had expectations beyond slopping pigs. The rage was back, hot, familiar, but Harper breathed through it, kept her voice steady. I had expectations. My daddy expected me to be strong. My mama expected me to survive. And right now, they're expecting me to stand up to spoiled boys who think money makes them untouchable. That's when Grayson smiled. The kind of smile that made her animal brain scream danger. You know what your problem is. Harper May Fitzgerald. He knew her full name. Of course he did. You still think this is about right and wrong, good and evil. But this is about power. And you have none. His hand moved fast, grabbed her hair bun from behind, yanked her head back hard enough to make her eyes water. Farm pigs, he whispered in her ear, belong in the mud. Let me know if this reminds you of someone who stood up when everyone said to stay down. The other boys laughed. One of them kicked her mop bucket over. Dirty water spread across the floor she'd just cleaned. But they'd made a mistake. A terrible, beautiful mistake. Because Harper Fitzgerald had been wrestling animals since before she could write her name. When you grow up on a farm, you learn about leverage, about using an opponent's strength against them, about the moment when a 200-pound hog charges and you have to redirect that force or get trampled. Grayson had her hair, was pulling her down and back, but that gave her his momentum, his balance, his weakness. Time slowed down. 10 years of muscle memory took over. She dropped her center of gravity, grabbed his wrist with both hands, pivoted her hip into his body, used his own pulling motion to load him onto her back. Then she threw him. Not pushed, not shoved. Threw him like she'd thrown countless bales of hay, like she'd flipped steers for branding. One smooth motion, born from necessity and practiced in survival. Grayson Whitmore, golden boy of Crestmont Prep, flew over her shoulder and hit the gymnasium floor with a sound like thunder. Silence. The other boys stood frozen. Their leader was on the ground, gasping, eyes wide with shock, and something else, fear, for the first time in his privileged life. Grayson Whitmore was afraid. Harper straightened, fixed her hair bun, looked at each boy in turn. Anyone else want to talk about where I belong? Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. That's when the slow clapping started from the rafters. Everyone looked up to see Dakota Sullivan climbing down from the beams, phone in hand. Got the whole thing, she called out. Every word, every threat, every second of self-defense. But she wasn't alone up there. Ezra Thompson emerged from the shadows, tapping his chest where the wire was hidden. DEA's going to love this audio, he said, especially the part where you admitted to selling drugs that killed Cooper. Grayson tried to sit up, wheezed. 2 ribs were clearly broken from the impact. You set me up. Harper knelt beside him, not threatening, almost gentle. No, Grayson, you set yourself up the day you decided Cooper Chen's life was worth less than your profit margin. The sirens were already getting closer. Mrs. Chen had made the calls. Federal agents, real investigators, not the local cops on Whitmore payroll, as they waited. Harper looked around the gym, at the boys who'd come to intimidate her, at her friends who'd hidden in the rafters to protect her, at Grayson broken on the floor he had thought he owned. "You were right about one thing," she told him. "This was never about good and evil. This was about power. But you forgot something important." She picked up her mop, went back to cleaning, because that's what she did. She cleaned up messes. Power isn't just about money or connections or fear. Sometimes power is just refusing to move when someone tells you that you don't belong. The federal agents arrived in force. 20 officers. Full tactical gear. They weren't just there for Grayson. The wire recordings, the documentation, Mrs. Chen's investigation. It all pointed to a conspiracy that went to the top of Whitmore Pharmaceuticals. As they led Grayson away on a stretcher, he turned to look at Harper one last time. "This isn't over," he said. Harper wrung out her mop, watched the dirty water swirl down the drain. "No," she agreed. "It's just beginning." The news hit Crestmont Prep like an avalanche. By morning, every major outlet was running the story. Pharmaceutical heir arrested in school drug ring. DEA raids elite prep school. Janitor student exposed $1 million murder scheme. But Harper wasn't watching the news. She was in the principal's office, still wearing her work boots, still smelling like floor cleaner, facing a room full of suits. Principal Morrison sat behind his mahogany desk, face gray as old snow. The board of trustees flanked him. Lawyers whispered in corners. And in the center of it all stood Richard Whitmore himself, CEO of Whitmore Pharmaceuticals, looking at Harper like she was something he'd scrape off his shoe. "Miss Fitzgerald," he said, voice smooth as poison. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding." Harper said nothing. Her mama had taught her that silence was sometimes the strongest response. "My son is in the hospital with broken ribs, injured by a school employee." Richard Whitmore pulled out a checkbook. Actually, pulled out a checkbook like this was 1985. "I'm prepared to offer you $500,000. All you have to do is recant your statement. Say it was a misunderstanding. Teenage drama that got out of hand." $500,000. More money than her family had seen in 3 lifetimes. Enough to buy back the farm, pay for Marcus's therapy, give her mama a rest. Principal Morrison leaned forward. "Harper, think carefully. Your future at Crestmont." "My future?" Harper finally spoke. "What about Cooper Chen's future? What about the 3 other kids who died?" "Unfortunate incidents," Richard Whitmore said, "but hardly connected to— I have the pills." The room went silent. Harper reached into her pocket, pulled out the baggie she'd kept since that night in the library. 3 blue pills with lightning bolts. "From Cooper's pocket, and I bet when you test them, they'll match the ones from your quality control failures. The ones your son was selling for $200 a pop to desperate kids who just wanted to keep their grades up." Richard Whitmore's face changed. The smooth executive mask cracked. "You ignorant little— Mr. Whitmore!" A new voice from the doorway. Federal Agent Sarah Collins walked in, badge visible, recording device in hand. "I'd be very careful about your next words." Behind her came Mrs. Chen, and Ezra Thompson, and 6 other students Harper didn't recognize, all holding papers, all ready to testify. "You see," Agent Collins continued, "Miss Fitzgerald here isn't our only witness. Over the past 6 months, we've built a comprehensive case. Your son was just the tip of the iceberg." She laid out photographs, pills from the factory, financial records, text messages between Grayson and his father discussing market expansion and acceptable loss rates. He knew, Harper said quietly. You knew your son was killing kids, and you supplied him anyway. Richard Whitmore's lawyers tried to speak, but he waved them off, looked at Harper with those cold eyes. You have no idea what you've done. Little girl, the donations I make keep this school running. The taxes my company pays keep this town alive. You think you're some hero. You just killed the golden goose. No, Mrs. Chen stepped forward. My son is dead. Cooper is dead. And you call losing money worse than losing children. The arrests happened fast after that. Richard Whitmore in handcuffs, board members scrambling for immunity deals, Principal Morrison resigning in disgrace. In total, 37 people were arrested. The drug ring had reached into 3 states, 12 schools, and generated over $2 million in blood money. But the hardest part was what came after. Crestmont Prep nearly closed. Without Whitmore's donations, they couldn't make payroll. Parents pulled their kids out. Teachers quit. The marble hallways that had seemed so permanent suddenly felt like ruins. Harper kept working her janitor shifts. Somebody had to. But now the halls were empty, echoing. Ghost town of privilege. One night, while mopping the library where Cooper died, she found Dakota crying in the stacks. I should have said something sooner, Dakota sobbed. I knew for a year, a whole year. How many kids died because I was too scared? Harper sat beside her. 2 girls in an empty library, carrying weight too heavy for their age. We all make choices, Harper said. What matters is what we do next. What came next surprised everyone. First, Ezra Thompson used his valedictorian speech to reveal his own addiction, stood at that podium and told 500 people how the pressure to be perfect had nearly killed him, how Grayson's pills had seemed like salvation until they became damnation. Then other students started talking. The girl who'd attempted suicide junior year, the boy who'd been hospitalized for exhaustion, the teacher who'd been fired for refusing to inflate grades. Years of secrets spilling out like water through a broken dam. The story went national. Congressional hearings, FDA investigations, Whitmore Pharmaceuticals' stock crashed. Richard Whitmore got 25 to life for conspiracy to distribute narcotics, resulting in death. Grayson got 15 years, eligible for parole in 7. But Harper wasn't done. See, she'd learned something throwing Grayson across that gym floor. Learned that power wasn't just about standing up to bullies. It was about what you built after the fighting stopped. With Mrs. Chen's help, she established the Cooper Chen Foundation, used the $2 million reward money from the FBI to create something beautiful from tragedy. They bought Harper's family farm back from the bank, all 200 acres, but not to farm. Tell me if you've ever seen broken kids heal when given space to grow. They turned it into a rehabilitation center, not the sterile, hospital kind. A working farm where kids recovering from academic pressure and addiction could remember what real work felt like, what real achievement meant. Harper's mama ran the kitchen. Her brother Marcus, who everyone had written off as unable to contribute, turned out to have a gift with animals. The therapy horses responded to his silence in ways they never did to words. Kids came from everywhere. Burnt-out valedictorians, recovering addicts, survivors of academic abuse. They learned to milk cows at 5 a.m., plant seeds, and watch them grow. Fix fences and mend what was broken. Harper finished her senior year at Crestmont, one of only 43 students who stayed. The school was different now, humbler. They sold the marble statues to pay teacher salaries, turned the boardroom into a mental health center, made Adrian Mills, the only board member who'd tried to investigate the deaths, the new principal. At graduation, Harper gave a speech, not as valedictorian, that was still Ezra, but as the student who'd changed everything. She stood at that podium in her second-hand dress and looked out at the sparse crowd, her mama in the front row, Marcus beside her, rocking slightly but proud, Mrs. Chen holding a picture of Cooper, Dakota and Ezra, and the others who'd found courage to speak truth. "They told me I didn't belong here," she began. "And they were right. I didn't belong in their Crestmont, the one built on lies and fear and children's bones. None of us belonged there." She talked about Cooper Chen, about the others who'd died chasing impossible standards, about the difference between excellence and exploitation. "But we built something new, something better. A place where worth isn't measured in test scores or bank accounts, but in courage, in compassion, in the willingness to stand up and say, 'No more.'" The applause was small but real. No golden confetti, no marble halls, just people who'd survived something terrible and chosen to build something better. After the ceremony, Harper was packing up her janitor's closet for the last time when someone knocked. Grayson's mother stood in the doorway. Harper had never met her before. She looked tired, older than her years. "I wanted to thank you," she said quietly. Harper waited. "My son, what he became, I saw it happening. Saw my husband molding him into something cruel, but I was too weak to stop it, too comfortable." She pulled out an envelope. "This isn't a bribe. It's penance. Use it for your farm, for the kids who need help." Inside was a check for $10 million. "Why?" Harper asked. "Because my son is alive. In prison. But alive. If you hadn't stopped him that night, he would have kept going, kept killing, until someone less merciful than you ended him." Tears ran down her face. "You saved him from becoming a complete monster. Maybe in 7 years, he can still become human again." Harper took the check. Not for herself, for the Cooper Chen Foundation, for the kids who would come to the farm broken and leave whole. 10 years later, I visited that farm, met Harper Fitzgerald, now Dr. Harper Fitzgerald, agricultural therapy PhD. She still wore work boots, still had her hair in that same practical bun, but her eyes were different, lighter, like someone who'd put down a heavy load. The farm was full of kids, planting vegetables, feeding chickens, learning that food came from earth and effort, not anxiety and pills. In the main house, her mama ran cooking classes. Marcus led silent meditation with the horses. Even Dakota was there, teaching kids that speaking truth late was better than never speaking at all. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked. "Taking on all that power?" Harper looked out over the fields, the same fields her daddy had worked, had died for. Now green, with new growth and second chances. "They wanted me to know my place," she said. "Thing is, I did know my place. My place was standing between them and the kids they were killing. My place was refusing to be moved." She smiled then, not bitter, not angry, just sure. Turns out, when you refuse to be moved, you give others permission to stand with you. And when enough people stand together, well, that's how you move mountains. The Connor Chen Foundation has saved over 3,000 kids so far. The academic pressure that once killed students at places like Crestmont is now recognized as a national crisis. Laws have changed. Schools have reformed. The culture that created Grayson Whitmore is dying, slowly but surely. And Harper. She still cleans up messes, just different ones now. The kind that grow in kids' hearts when they're told they're never enough. She helps them wash that poison away, helps them plant something better, every morning. She does her chores, feeds the animals, tends the garden. And sometimes, when the light is right and the farm is quiet, she remembers a boy named Cooper Chen, remembers holding him as he died, remembers the promise she made to his memory. Justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about building something so beautiful from the ashes that the fire seems worth it. Sometimes it's about turning the place where you were told you don't belong into a place where everyone belongs. Harper Fitzgerald knew her place, and her place was exactly where she stood, unmoved, unafraid, unfinished, with her work of cleaning up the messes that power leaves behind. The last time I saw her, she was teaching a scared kid how to milk a cow. The kid, some senator's son recovering from a nervous breakdown, was trembling, afraid of the large animal, afraid of failure. The secret, Harper told him, is not to pull, just be steady, consistent. The milk comes when you stop forcing and start working with what's already there. The boy nodded, tried again, and when the first stream of milk hit the bucket, his face lit up like he'd discovered fire. That's Harper's gift, not the throwing, though she did coach the local high school wrestling team to state champions 3 years running. Not the courage, though she testified in Congress 5 times to reform academic pressure laws. Her gift is simpler. She shows broken kids that they can create something real with their hands. That worth comes from work, not worry. That belonging isn't given by others, but claimed by yourself. The farm runs entirely on donations now. That $10 million from Grayson's mother started it, but others followed. Parents who'd lost kids to academic pressure, students who'd survived the system, even some teachers from the old Crestmont, trying to atone. There's a memorial garden in the center of the property. 4 trees for the 4 students who died. Cooper Chen's is a cherry tree, blooming pink every spring. His mother planted it herself, crying as she patted dirt around its roots. He would have loved this place, she told Harper. Would have loved knowing his death meant others could live. That's the thing about standing up to power. It's not just about the moment of defiance. It's about what you build in the space your courage creates. It's about taking the spot where they said you don't belong and turning it into a place where everyone can heal. Harper Fitzgerald was told to know her place. She did, and she claimed it with work boots and steady hands, and the kind of strength that comes from wrestling hogs and heartbreak since before you could write your name. Her place was wherever kids were dying from impossible expectations. Her place was between the powerful and the powerless. Her place was standing still when everyone said to move. And in the end, that refusal to move moved everything. The story of the farm girl who threw the golden boy and brought down an empire isn't really about the throwing. It's about the building. It's about turning poison into medicine, privilege into purpose, power into protection for those who need it most. Some say Harper Fitzgerald saved Crestmont Prep that night in the gym. Others say she destroyed it. They're both right. She destroyed what it was so it could become what it should have been all along. A place where kids could learn without dying. Where worth wasn't measured in millions, but in courage. where a farm girl could stand in marble halls and say, "I belong here, to," and mean it, every spring, when the cherry tree blooms. Harper holds a ceremony, reads the names of kids lost to academic pressure across the country. Hundreds of names now. Too many. But fewer each year as the culture changes. As the foundations multiply. As the message spreads, you belong wherever you choose to stand. Your worth isn't in your achievements, but in your willingness to achieve change. And sometimes, the best way to clean up a mess is to flip the whole system on its back and start fresh. Harper Fitzgerald knew her place, and she made it big enough for everyone else who'd been told they didn't belong. That's the power of refusing to move. That's the strength of knowing exactly where you stand. Epilogue. 7 years later, the man who walked through the prison gates didn't look like Grayson Whitmore anymore. 7 years inside had carved away the golden boy, left something rawer, harder in some ways, softer in others. Harper was waiting in the parking lot. Same work boots, same bun, same steady eyes. "Why are you here?" Grayson asked. He'd expected his mother, maybe a lawyer. Not her. "Someone needs to drive you to your job interview." He stopped. "What job interview?" "The one at the farm. We need someone to teach the business side of recovery. Grant writing, fundraising, legal compliance." She studied him. "You've got an MBA from Yale and 7 years to think about how you used it wrong. Figured you might want to use it right." The drive to Iowa took 6 hours. They didn't speak for the first 3. Finally, as they crossed into farm country, Grayson broke. "I killed him, Cooper. I killed him and I laughed about it." "I know. I've written his mother letters. Every week for 7 years. She never writes back." "I know. Why would you hire me?" Harper glanced at him. "You know what I learned wrestling hogs? Sometimes the meanest ones are just scared. Scared of being small. Scared of being prey. So they attack first. Become the thing everyone fears, so they never have to feel fear themselves." Fields rolled by. Corn and soybeans and memories. "You were a scared kid with a toxic father and too much money," she continued. "That doesn't excuse what you did. Nothing excuses that. But maybe you can spend the rest of your life making sure other scared kids don't make your choices." The Connor Chen Recovery Farm spread across the horizon. Bigger than before. 300 acres now. Dormitories, greenhouses. A school where kids learned at their own pace without pills. Mrs. Chen was in the garden when they arrived. She looked up, saw Grayson, and went very still. He dropped to his knees, right there in the dirt. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It doesn't matter, and it doesn't help, but I'm so sorry." She watched him kneel there. This boy who'd killed her boy. Now a man carrying a weight that would never lift. Then she did something nobody expected. She helped him up. "Cooper believed in second chances," she said quietly. "He wrote an essay about it once, how everyone deserves the chance to become better than their worst moment." Her voice broke. "I hate you for what you took, but I honor my son by trying to live what he believed." That's how Grayson Whitmore became the night janitor at the farm he'd tried to destroy. Full circle. He worked for free, writing grants in the evening, teaching business skills to recovering kids during the day, living in a small room above the barn, learning what real work felt like. Some of the kids recognized him, the older ones who remembered the scandal. They tested him at first, pushed, waited for the arrogant boy to emerge. But Harper had been right. Prison had wrestled that boy away. What remained was someone who knew the cost of cruelty, who could spot a kid heading down his path from a mile away and redirect them. I used to think power meant being untouchable. He told a group of teens one evening. They were sitting around a fire, sharing stories. But real power, it's knowing you can be touched, hurt, broken, and choosing to stay soft anyway. Choosing to feel it all instead of numbing it with money or drugs or cruelty. Harper watched from the farmhouse window. Watched the boy who'd grabbed her hair become a man who was learning to handle things gently. Not forgiveness, never forgiveness. Some things break too badly to be made whole. But sometimes, Harper thought, you can build something useful from the pieces. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, but transformation. The farm's motto, painted on a sign by the entrance, said it all, know your place, it's wherever you choose to stand. And they all stood there together. The farm girl who refused to move. The broken boy learning to be better. The grieving mother honoring her son. The recovering kids finding their worth. All of them, finally, exactly where they belonged.